Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a really comprehensive stack of source material today, all detailing one of the most stressful things you can imagine, a rapid-fire emergency response at, of all places, London Heathrow Airport. Specifically, it's about an incident in a car park that just sent the entire security system into, well, into overdrive.
Right. And when a situation like this happens, especially at a global hub like Heathrow, the first wave of information is always just chaos.
Yeah. Sirens, speculation, rumors flying around on social media.
Exactly.
So our job today is really to cut through all of that noise.
Yeah.
We're going to figure out what the official playbook looks like when, high-stakes panic hits. We want to extract that clarity, focusing on the protocol that defines this kind of modern emergency response.
And the sources give us remarkable specificity here. We're looking at a reported assault in the multi-story car park at Terminal 3. And the key detail, the thing that immediately raises the threat level, the reported use of a form of pepper spray.
That phrase, pepper spray, at an airport,
No.
it's a simple weapon, but in that context, it instantly becomes a potential chemical threat. It forces the entire system to default to maximum alert.
It absolutely does. And the timeline, which we know from the police reports, really underscores that urgency. The Met Police got the call at around 8:11 a.m.
Right, as the morning travel rush is building.
Precisely. So there's no hesitation. The response has to assume the highest possible level of threat until they can prove otherwise.
Okay, let's unpack that immediately.
Yeah.
We need to analyze the scene and that initial escalation. What did the authorities find when they arrived? What do we know about the people involved?
Well, the initial reports detailed that a group of men had allegedly sprayed people with what they thought was an irritant spray, and then, they quickly left the scene. So you have a crime, a chemical agent deployed in a public space, and suspects who are actively fleeing a highly secure area.
That's a perfect storm of factors.
It is. It demanded an immediate and, frankly, an overwhelming show of force.
And that's exactly what we see in the footage, isn't it? A huge police presence, armed officers, ambulances, fire engines, all converging on this one car park. But this is where the source material gave us that crucial bit of context, and really early on, too.
This is the absolute pivot point of the whole incident. It comes from Commander Peter Stevens. Instead of letting speculation run wild, the authorities moved really fast to clarify the motive. Commander Stevens stated that they believed the incident involved a group of people known to each other.
No.
And that it was likely an argument that just escalated very, very quickly.
How unusual is that for a commander to issue such a specific clarification that they were known to each other in the middle of a live high-stakes incident? Doesn't that kind of risk underplaying the severity of it all? I mean, you've got armed officers deployed for a chemical incident.
That's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of modern crisis management. In an age of instant information, the biggest threat is often the public's fear of the unknown.
Right, the vacuum gets filled with rumors.
Exactly. By identifying it as a dispute between people who knew each other, they are managing public perception while still treating the physical act with maximum seriousness. It lets them separate a severe but personal assault from a strategic public attack.
That distinction really does change everything. It shifts the threat from, an attack on the whole airport system to something contained.
Precisely. Even while the police are still fully mobilized, it informs the why of the situation. They can proceed with the full emergency protocol, but the strategic outlook just shifts away from terrorism.
So let's talk about that speed, because the official timeline says armed officers were on the scene almost instantly after that 8:11 a.m. report. The visibility of it all, the armed police, the fire engines, it's designed to stabilize a volatile situation and just tell everyone, we are here, we are in control.
And that massive multi-agency presence is the critical piece. When you see armed police, fire, and medical all deployed together, it means the system has skipped the lower-level responses. It's gone straight to its highest safety protocol. They're treating the situation based on the potential for a chemical attack, even if the reality turns out to be a personal fight.
Which brings us perfectly to the operational details of that response. We saw three major players. Let's start with the Metropolitan Police. What were their core functions here beyond just that initial rapid deployment?
The police really had a dual role. First, immediate containment, and second, a prolonged investigation. Containment meant, controlling the car park, securing the scene, and arresting suspects. The records show one man was arrested pretty quickly on suspicion of assault.
But the investigation didn't just stop there, did it? The reports say they were actively trying to trace further suspects. That suggests it was a group assault, not just one person acting alone.
Exactly. And the second part of their job was visibility and reassurance. The police made sure there was an increased police presence at Heathrow Airport throughout the morning.
That's a tactical choice.
It absolutely is. It maintains traveler confidence, it reassures the staff, and it helps with the ongoing search for the other people involved.
Okay, now let's look at the supporting services. This is where the specific threat of the pepper spray really comes into focus. We have the London Ambulance Service and, crucially, the London Fire Brigade.
Right, let's talk about the ambulance service first. They confirmed they were caring for a number of patients, and all of them were taken to the hospital. But the critical piece of medical information, the one that should reassure everyone, came almost immediately. The injuries were not believed to be life-changing or life-threatening.
And that single detail is the difference between a tragic outcome and just a very serious incident.
It's the single most important detail about the immediate human impact. The injuries were treatable, consistent with an irritant spray, but not something more lethal.
And the London Fire Brigade's presence, that really zeroes in on the chemical threat, doesn't it?
Huh?
Why do you need the fire brigade for a pepper spray incident? Why not just police and ambulance?
This is a perfect example of standard, high-level safety protocol. The LFB spokesperson said they provided specialist assistance. What that means is the fire brigade has the specialist teams and equipment for hazardous materials. Hazmat.
Of course.
Even something like pepper spray, while it's non-lethal, it's still a chemical agent. If it contaminates the area, the floors, the air vents, people's clothing, the fire brigade has to step in. They assess the risk, provide decontamination, and make sure the area is safe for people to go back into. It's an environmental and chemical risk role.
So, if you put it all together,
Mhm.
you have armed police for security, the ambulance service for treating people, and the fire brigade for managing the environmental hazard. It's a three-pronged, highly practiced coordination. It shows a system that's just designed to handle the absolute worst-case scenario from the very first second.
And that coordination clearly paid off. The fact that the fire brigade was stood down shortly after 10:30 a.m. tells us the chemical risk was contained and resolved in about 2 hours. They didn't stand down until that contamination risk was, completely gone.
It's the textbook definition of over-responding safely to an unknown threat, which then allows them to dial back the panic once they know what's really going on. And that strategic dial back leads us right into Section 3, the official communications.
Right.
Because at an airport, the public's default assumption is always going to be the worst-case scenario, terrorism. So Commander Stevens had the job of addressing those fears head-on.
And this is where that careful public messaging is so important. He was very effective in his statement. He acknowledged the fear. He specifically said, "I understand the public's concerns and would like to thank those in the area for their cooperation." That simple acknowledgement is so vital for public trust.
They weren't dismissing the fear. They were validating it while giving people facts.
Exactly. But the most critical, system-defining statement was the official classification, and they delivered it quickly and decisively. "We are not treating this incident as terrorism." That one sentence is what brought the situation from a potential national security incident back down to a severe but contained criminal assault.
It's incredible how much power that statement holds, and we can trace the speed of that decision right back to the detail we talked about earlier, the fact that the individuals were known to each other.
Yes. That piece of context gave the investigative team the confidence to rule out a wider ideological motive so quickly. If it had been classified as terrorism, the operational impact would have been catastrophic. We're talking a full airport shut down, planes grounded for hours.
A total mess.
A total mess. Being able to identify this as a personal conflict allowed them to isolate the response and prevent total paralysis.
But even with that huge sigh of relief, we do need to stress that the investigation was still a high priority. One man arrested, but the search for others continued, which is why that police presence remained so high all morning.
Absolutely. The search for multiple suspects shows that while the motive wasn't terrorism, the severity of the assault itself was taken extremely seriously. It was a serious crime in a very sensitive location.
Right. Now let's pivot to Section 4, the operational impact. Because for any traveler caught up in this, the biggest question is logistical. How did this affect the massive engine that is Heathrow?
The answer is, surprisingly, it was well managed. The sources are very clear on this. Despite the scale of the emergency response, Heathrow Terminal 3 remained open throughout.
That says a lot about their contingency planning, their ability to sort of compartmentalize a crisis.
It's a real testament to that planning. They effectively sealed off the car park, which is separate from the main terminal, while keeping things moving inside.
But while the terminal itself stayed open, there were obviously some clear ripple effects. The traffic reports show the incident caused significant traffic and public transport disruption right around the access roads.
And this is where the issue shifts from a security crisis to a disruption management challenge. The choke point was external access. Cars couldn't easily get in or out of the area, so that created delays for anyone trying to get to the airport.
And that's why Heathrow's official advice was so practical. They just told passengers to allow extra time when traveling to the airport.
And
They acknowledged the disruption without, escalating the security narrative again.
And that's the connection we need to make for you, the listener. The source material shows that this intense coordination between the police, the fire brigade, the ambulance service, and Heathrow's own teams allowed the system to absorb this major incident. They managed the threat, made an arrest, secured the area, and kept one of the world's busiest travel humps flowing. The system really, it held up under extreme pressure.
It's a remarkable case study in crisis management. Let's quickly summarize the key takeaways we've distilled from these reports.
Absolutely. So, 3 essential points for you to take away from this. First, the incident was quickly defined as an isolated argument between people who knew each other, which allowed the authorities to rule out terrorism very fast. Second, the emergency response was immediate and comprehensive. You had armed officers, medical teams, and specialist fire assistants for the chemical side of it. And third, despite this massive mobilization, the injuries were not life-threatening, and the airport itself kept functioning, shifting the problem to just managing the disruption.
And now let's leave you with something to consider. Just picture that scene again. A massive deployment of armed police, fire engines, specialist chemical teams, all converging on one spot. And all because of an alleged pepper spray attack between people who already knew each other.
It seems so disproportionate when you put it like that.
It does. But what this deep dive shows us is that paradoxical nature of modern security. Authorities have to deploy a maximum response to manage the high-stakes perceived threat, a chemical weapon at an airport. They have to do that until they can confidently confirm the much more specific known threat, an isolated criminal assault. It makes you realize the sheer complexity of managing perceived versus known threats and the incredible investment and training it takes to deploy that level of force, manage it, and then de-escalate it all without causing total paralysis. It really does speak volumes about the fine line security forces walk every day. What does that balance of caution and efficiency tell you about the safety systems you rely on? Thanks for diving deep with us